this video, we are going to go over how to raise a fraction to a negative exponent. Oh boy! So there's a shortcut way of doing this. I'm going to go over why that works. And so what we have here is you've got a fraction, 3/4, raised to the negative second power. Now notice first that there's nothing that we can simplify on the inside of the parentheses. I always look to simplify first before applying the exponent, just to basically go by the order of operations, and it makes life easier. Noticing this, I now have everything raised to the -2. Now, based on our rules that we've learned in previous videos, we could do this. We could just do 3 to the -2, distribute that -2 to everything here, and 4 to the -2. Right? That's just raising a fraction to a power. Now, what we notice from this though is when we do that, you end up with everything being raised to a negative power, which means that everything is going to end up in the opposite place that it started. If you're in the numerator, you end up in the denominator. If you're in the denominator to start, you end up in the numerator. So watch what happens. 3 to the -2 ends up in the denominator as 3 squared. 4 to the -2 ends up in the numerator as 4 squared. And now you end up with 16, 4 times 4, 4 squared over 3 squared, which is 9. So you end up with 16 ninths. I like to do it a little differently. Knowing that this is how it works, that everything ends up being flipped, you might as well recognize that and have the negative exponent act on everything from the start. So I rewrite it as 4/3 squared, basically applying the negative exponent to everything and then recognizing, okay, I flipped all the parts. Now I've got 4 squared over 3 squared, which you might skip this step and do it mentally, that's up to you, which is 4 times 4 over 3 times 3. So I think this is a little quicker way once you've simplified what's in the fraction. So in the next two problems, I'm going to actually use that method to start. All right, let's rock and roll. So in B, we've got that negative exponent and a fraction. There is nothing to simplify inside the parentheses, so I'll proceed. Like I showed you in the second way of doing 3/4 to -2, I'm going to flip everything first per that negative power. So that gives me negative, well, the negative can go downstairs. The -2x is in the denominator. And then you have y in the numerator, and that becomes everything to the 4th. The negative exponent has acted on everything. Now I raise everything to the 4th power. So that's going to be equal to y to the 4th all over -2x to the 4th power. So take your time, be patient, go step by step, and the rules will all apply nicely to each part as you simplify. The rules of exponents, that is. So y to the 4th just stays. There's nothing we can do with that. Remember that when you raise a product to a power, each part of that product gets raised to that power. So I'm distributing the 4 to the -2, all of that, and then the 4 to the x. So -2 to the 4th, the negative is being raised to the 4th power, so it's -2 times -2 is 4, times -2 is -8, times -2 is +16. And that is x to the 4th. If you are using a calculator with this, make sure to use parentheses. If you don't, your calculator is going to give you a negative answer, because you'd be doing the opposite of 2 to the 4th. Sweet peeps, there's our answer, as it were, right here. So now, with this problem, I've given you one where you can simplify in the parentheses first. So let's do it. We're going to simplify in the parentheses first, and then we'll deal with the exponent. So looking at this, mentally, I'm saying, okay, I've got 2ab all over a cubed b. Well, I know that the b's are going to just straight up divide out. That's kind of nice, right? B divided by b is 1. And a over a cubed is going to leave me with no more a's in the numerator and 1 less a in the denominator, right? Because remember, when you divide exponent, well, powers, you subtract exponents, that would be a to the 1 over a to the 3, leaving you with 2 a's in the denominator. So that leaves me with 2 in the numerator. These have all become 1s. 2 times all of that 1 is 2. A squared in the denominator. So that's what just happened on the interior here, which this is a whole heck ton better than that to raise to a power. Now we've got the negative power, so we're going to flip everything. Take the reciprocal. That's a squared over 2. Raised to the +2 because the negative powers acted on this and made it the reciprocal. And now everything gets raised to the second power. So you get a squared all over 2 squared. which is equal to, let's see, a squared squared is a to the fourth, right? We multiply exponents, all over 2 times itself twice, 4. A to the fourth over 4. It's a beautiful thing, peeps. Step by step, piece by piece is how you do these problems. None of them are going to be those problems that you look at right away and say, I know how to do all the steps. You will eventually know how to do all the steps, but take it part by part. Awesome.